The next chapter of Journey to Nowhere is called Setting a Trap. Everyone had a job to do that day, except for the very youngest children. But the work was fun because we were doing it together. Mama put Hannah and me in charge of making the switchel to take to the thirsty men at the cabin site. That was a good job to have. Girls weren't allowed to help with the building, but at least we could see what was going on without being told we were in the way. We measured out molasses, vinegar, and dried ginger into 2 wooden pails. Then we carried them out to the cabin site to fill them with cold creek water. The cool moss on the forest floor felt good on my bare feet as we walked along. None of the women and children wore shoes this time of year. The men had to wear boots when they were using their axes, though. If they slipped, it would be too easy to chop off a toe. Hannah and I found that the best place to get down the creek bank was on a huge flat stone that jutted out from the edge. We had to be careful because it wobbled a bit when we stood on it to dip the pails. We used a long handled ladle to stir the switchel until the molasses and ginger dissolved. The full pails were so heavy it took both of us to carry one. Lemuel Pierce made a face when I offered the dipper to him. My sister didn't make this, did she? Because if she did, I'd rather go thirsty. The men within hearing distance laughed. Don't take any then, Hannah snapped. She pulled the pail out of his reach, sloshing some switchel on her feet. I hope your tongue feels like it's wearing a scratchy wool sweater, Lemuel Pierce. Lemuel took the dipper from me and held Hannah's wrist until he scooped himself a cup of switchel. He downed 2 ladles full, then wiped his mouth on his sleeve and winked at me. Hannah knows she's my favorite sister. That's why I tease her. Hannah gave him a cuff on the arm, but she couldn't help but smile. I could tell they were good friends in spite of the teasing. It made me wish I had an older brother instead of a younger one. Where's that pail of switchel? Mr. Porter called. My throat's turning to dust here. Coming, I said. Mr. Porter, Papa, and the rest of the men emptied both pails right off and were still thirsty, so we had to go back to the camp for more molasses, vinegar, and ginger. We were halfway there when we heard someone call Hannah's name. Mercy Pierce and another girl blocked our path up ahead. Ignore them, Hannah whispered, starting to walk faster. That's Eliza Crandall with Mercy. They're both stuck on themselves. I had remembered seeing Eliza back in camp and thinking how pretty she was with her long, shiny black hair and big brown eyes. What do they want with us? It's not us they want. I expect they want to take the switchel pails out to the men. They're both sweet on the Chubb brothers. Mercy likes Hezekiah. Can you imagine? He's so disgusting. Did you see that big red boil on his nose? How would you like to kiss that? Just then, Mercy came up and tried to snatch the pail out of my hands. Run off and find something else to do, children. Eliza and I will take over here. What if we don't want to? I said, pulling on the handle. Actually, I was tired and would have welcomed the rest, but I didn't like being bossed around. Eliza grabbed me from behind and sent me sprawling, my pail rolling across the ground. She didn't look so pretty now. Her eyes had narrowed to mean little slits. This is women's work. With that haircut, you don't even look like a girl. Hannah wrapped both arms around her pail. Leave Mem alone. I like her haircut. Mercy pushed Hannah off balance, catching the pail as she fell. I started to lunge for Mercy, but Hannah grabbed the hem of my skirt and held me fast as the 2 other girls walked off toward the camp, laughing at us. I crouched beside her. Why did you stop me? I crouched beside her. Why did you stop me? I could have beat up your skinny sister and her nasty friend, too. And that would just get you into trouble. It's no use trying to get the better of Mercy and Eliza. They always win. Well, they won't win this time, I said. Follow me and hurry. We have a little time while they're busy at camp getting the switchel fixings. We ran to the cabin site, staying close to the creek so nobody could see us. At first, when I told Hannah my plan, she didn't see how it would work. Even so, she helped me set my trap. I had barely finished when we heard Mercy and Eliza coming back from the camp. Just before they reached the place where the men were working, They stopped to perk up their ribbons in each other's hair and pinch their cheeks to make them rosy. Then they headed towards the creek. Hannah and I crouched behind a bush. "What if they don't fill their pails at the same spot we used?" Hannah whispered. "They will. It's the easiest place to get down the bank." The two girls went past our spot and then doubled back. "Over there," Mercy said. "It's not so steep. There's even a big flat rock to stand on so we won't get our slippers wet." A wicked smile crossed Hannah's face. "This is even better than I thought." Mercy's put on her best Sunday shoes. Mama will have her hide if she ruins them. The two girls came close enough for their skirts to brush against us. I held my breath, hoping they wouldn't notice the long branch tucked under the edge of the flat rock. I got a firm grip on the branch and motioned for Hannah to do the same. Then I slowly raised my head above the bush, watching until both girls were leaning over, dipping their pails. "Now," I whispered. As we pushed down with our full weight, the other end of the branch tilted the rock just enough to dump Mercy and Eliza into the water. I grabbed Hannah's hand and we ran, ducking behind another bush on the creek bank farther upstream. "Can you see them?" I asked, my heart pounding in my throat. "Shh, listen." "You clumsy ox," Mercy shrieked. "Look what you've done." "Me?" yelled Eliza. "I'm the one who said the rock was unsteady. I told you to be careful." I pushed my head close to Hannah's so I could see through an opening in the bush. Mercy and Eliza were scrambling up the bank. Hunks of wet hair and sodden ribbons hung in their faces. Their gingham dresses were soaked and mud-stained, and one of Mercy's Sunday shoes was missing altogether. "I've lost a slipper," Mercy screamed. "Quick, help me find it." "Find it yourself," Eliza said. "I'm not going back in that freezing water." "Hold on, Mercy. I'll help you," a male voice called. It was the Chubb brother with the boil on his nose. He waded straight away into the water, plunged in his hand, and pulled out the slipper. "Is this it?" "What a nincompoop," Hannah whispered. "How many slippers does he expect to find in that creek?" Mercy sat on the bank, primping and poking at her dish mop mess of hair, while the nose boil boy slipped the shoe on her foot. "Now she thinks she's Cinderella," Hannah mumbled. The other Chubb brother came to Eliza's rescue, and they carried the two dripping girls back to the camp. We could hear Mercy's high-pitched giggle even after they were out of sight. "Well, that didn't turn out the way it was supposed to," I said. "I thought everybody would laugh at them." Hannah put her arm around my shoulder. "I thought it was a wonderful prank. They looked like two sheep being dunked for shearing day. And did you see the expression on Mercy's face when she realized her shoe was missing? I'll remember that picture as long as I live." That night we had a big meal cooked by the women in the camp. Mr. Pierce was right about there being plenty of food. It took some fancy persuading from Hannah to get me to try the turtle soup, but I had to admit it was delicious. Later, when the sun went down, the woods glowed from the light of the two campfires. The little children ran around playing tag in the dark, and they grew tired, and their mothers settled them into the wagons for the night. The men sat around our table by the main fire pit, although none of them were getting loud and ruckus, like men typically do. Mama didn't seem to notice. She sat with the women, who gathered at the other campfire talking and laughing. The men had cut down some logs for them to sit on. Hannah and I went to the front seat of the Pierce's wagon, where we could see everything that was going on, but couldn't be seen ourselves. The sound of a tin whistle lifted up through the trees. "That's Lemuel," Hannah said. "He plays every night after he's finished his chores. It's nice, isn't it? It makes me sad, though. Almost sounds like someone crying." "My father used to play the fiddle," I said. "He doesn't have it now. He sold it before we came here." "That's too bad. My father plays the fiddle, too. He plays it at all the cabin raisings and husking bees. Mama used to play the piano, but we had to leave that behind." The groups around the fire started breaking up for the night, so Mrs. Pierce came directly to the wagon. "It'll be an early morning and another hard day's work," she said. "Best head back to your family and get some sleep, Mem." With all the excitement, I thought I'd have trouble getting to sleep that night. I raised up on my elbows and looked out of the shelter. There, in the glimmer of the firelight, were 4 wagons filled with sleeping neighbors, and in the distance, I could hear the soulful melody of Lemuel's tin whistle. I fell asleep before the end of the song. And that is the end of that chapter. And we are on to the last chapter, which is called The Chinking is Stinking, which is very interesting. We'll have to see what happens.